Hey everyone, welcome back to the Growth Signal. We are rethinking how we build relationships with our customers, and there is no better guest for today's conversation than our guest today. Welcome to the show, Christina.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
So let's get right into it. What is your hot take?
We destroyed our writing before AI entered the chat.
Okay, tell me more.
So there's a lot of conversations, especially on LinkedIn, about like AI this, AI that. AI makes you lazy. AI makes you a bad writer. If you have M dashes, you're clearly AI. You didn't really write it. All this other stuff. Here's the thing: those M dashes come from a place. So someone was using the M dashes for AI to take them. Also, Emily Dickinson is notorious for using a lot of M dashes.
I
So
love my M dash. I will die on that hill, and I actually do know how to make one. Alt 0150. Okay, people. Like, I love my M dash, and now I'm nervous. Everyone's gonna be like, she didn't really write that.
yeah. But that's the thing. So, like, it's learning, so it has to learn from something. So if they're using an M dash, then it had to have been from a writer initially because it didn't just come from nothing.
Right.
But the problem is that we have been optimizing our content for so long that especially on LinkedIn, and I would say just about every single platform, we've already kind of digitally scrubbed the humanness from our content like years ago. Like, we all know the recipe, we all know the broetry, we're gonna all do lines, we're gonna have a hook, probably a hook with data, like a data percentage. Then we're gonna go into a list, then we're gonna go into a lesson, and then we're gonna go into a CTA. So, like, we already kind of botitized our life and our writing before AI ever got here. And so I think that that's also why you're seeing this surge of like meme culture on LinkedIn and people starting to write very, very short form content there because it is the opposite of the recipe. It is the opposite of the formula. And so that's the hot take. We were messing up before AI did it for us.
I think that there's a lot of that I want to dive into. I
Yeah.
just got off a call actually a few minutes ago about like fighting the algorithm and how someone writes a post that's actually meaningful and thoughtful and that they sat down and thought was really going to be something that resonated, and maybe it gets a couple hundred views.
Mhm.
It's in 200 view jail. But they post that they signed up to volunteer for something and they add it to their volunteer experience to their LinkedIn profile, and all of a sudden thousands of views and like things that isn't really that important. And so not only have we gamified and formalized our writing and made it so that we all sound like, the same bro culture of, hey, I got married this weekend and here's what it taught me about
Yeah.
B2B sales.
Yep.
But then we also have to fight against the invisible algorithm that seems to change every week.
Yeah. And then there's also the idea like selfie culture has also kind of permeated that too. And so like I actually posted a few weeks ago and I was like, I just want to be an average looking person that's really smart and wants to share my ideas. I don't want to have to like it's just this whole like you have to pose on a couch. I don't know what it is. There's so many selfies on a couch on LinkedIn. I'm like,
I guess to show that you're not a normal, you're a cool kid, not a regular kid. You don't sit at a desk, you sit on a couch.
it's weird. It's just I don't know. Maybe we all need to just have, like, a day where we just are not performative. Like, just a vacation, a holiday, a just say what you're gonna say, and you
An
don't need selfie.
anti-performative purge day. Like, don't do it.
Yeah, yeah, and if you have nothing to say, you know what, that's great. Just don't. Just take
Yeah.
the day off.
Well, and it's hard too because like anyone who is working in any kind of, sales role, post-sales role,
Yes.
anyone who has to deal with customers, you feel a little bit like you have to do that in order to get attention, and that's how people are buying these days. And
But
I wrote an article a couple years ago, like I don't want to be an influencer,
but
but
you
if it
kinda
means
have to.
but if it's the only way my business is gonna be successful, then I guess I'm gonna have to be an influencer. And I'm coming to terms with it still. It's been like years. And everyone's like, oh, you have to do this in order to get business and get sales. And I wish they were wrong, but they're not.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way, and I have the same trap that I'm kind of, like, trying to crawl out of. I have a book that I wrote, and it's coming out in September, and every time I talk about even here, like, every time I talk about it, every time I write about it, it feels like I have to put my influencer hat on, and it's like, why can't I just be the little hobbit in the Shire, like, surrounded in my garden, and, like, every now and then, like, Christina isn't an idiot. Like, that's all I actually want. But
I always tell
that
people I'm a secret introvert. Like I
yes.
just want to sit in my office and do good shit. Like I
Exactly, exactly, but it does feel like, especially with the job market the way that it is, that we all kinda have to be influencers and, like, do this whole personal brand march, and it's just
It's
I don't
exhausting.
know. It's exhausting, and I would say, like, if you're seeing this and you see someone who's killing it on LinkedIn and you're just, like, sigh, like, "Oh, I wish I could be like them." I'm gonna go ahead and break it to you right now. There is a very good chance that they hate it too. That they're like, "Get me off this ride, but I have to stay on."
Well, I just had a conversation with someone who was like, "Oh, yeah, I spend an hour a day crafting a single LinkedIn post because I have to warm the algorithm. So I have to go around and like other people's stuff and comment on other people's stuff. And then I have to write my own thing. And then I have to go around and continue to comment on people's stuff. And it like 10 hours a week of just
Yeah.
writing maybe 5 to 6 posts. That
Yeah,
seems like a lot.
and then there's also TikTok, like, you have to feel like you have to be creating content there, and so we've turned into this idea of, like, you have to know every trend, you have to be on top of it, you have to create the content, you have to do all these things, and it's just we've kind of turned into a world where even if you aren't a marketer, if you just want to be known, you have to be chronically online, and then you have to magically, like, have it all figured out,
Hmm.
and it's exhausting. So if you're listening to this, like, we're all exhausted. If you're exhausted, we're exhausted.
Yeah, I've invested in a lot of really good concealer for the bags under my eyes from
Yeah. Same, same. Like, they're designer, but, like, they're there. Yeah.
they're there. Exactly. Oh my God, I'm gonna steal that. But let's come to the reality of what you're learning in your book, right? As you're
Yeah.
putting that book together, is this is this something that we as the quote unquote influencer group of people have just created in our heads? Or is there some there in that this is how we are building relationships in the post-COVID world?
I think it's both. I think it's a bit of a perfect storm. I think you're seeing a few things happening at once. You're seeing the continual commodification of absolutely everything. Your content is not good if it can't be commodified. Your book isn't good if it can't be commodified. Your thoughts, not good if it can't be commodified. And so we're seeing that in everything. We're seeing the further deterioration of third places, which is incredibly harmful, where we get to a point where the third place is now digital, and if it's online, it's probably a conference where we're actually not even paying attention to the speakers. We're actually just going there to see people and hang out. Or
Yeah.
we're going to the concert and now we're spending like 10x what we would have spent like 10 years ago for the exact same person. And so, like, you're seeing Coachella turning into something and South by Southwest. You're seeing all of these, like, go-to places that are turning into, like, influencer wonderlands for them, but for everybody else, it's just like, "We took your money, but, like, you're not gonna have a great experience because you're not an influencer." And so,
Right. Right.
we're seeing all of this commodification to the point where we're lost. And then you factor AI on top of that where it's saying, well, we've commodified every part about you, but now AI can actually do everything you're doing, whether that's true or not. So now it's we've commodified you to pieces, and now we can replace you and then commodify that. And then you're kind of left with, okay, well, what's my purpose?
Right. How do I keep my humanity in this
Yes.
experience of
Yeah.
digital and AI and performance art, if you will,
Yeah. Yeah.
is a little bit how I feel. And one of the reasons I reached out to you to invite you to be on the podcast was some of your content around the idea that we have to connect emotionally in order to
Yeah.
truly build loyalty. And I want you to tell us a little bit more about that. Like how do we build true customer loyalty and how
Yeah.
do we use emotional connection, especially in this quote unquote world of influencers?
Yeah. So when you look at customer brand relationships, you need to look at it like an actual relationship. You need to look about like love languages and how you show up for each other. The thing is that brands want to be loved, but they're not doing anything worth loving. Like they're
They want it
not,
to be a one-way love, right? You love me, but
yeah.
I just kind of tolerate you.
Well, I saw something on I don't know if it was a thread or a tweet, but it was something that I feel like if you just put this on brands, it's the way I feel. And it was, these can't be the same men that Dolly begged Jolene not to steal. And I was like,
Jolene, you can
"Yeah,
have them.
Jolene, you can have him. Thanks. Thanks for your service." But I feel the same way about brands. Like, they want us to beg for them. They want us to be okay with spending more. They want us to shout them from the rooftops. They want us to love them and defend them and die on the hill if someone says anything negative. But then they've never shown up for people to warrant that kind of adoration. And so there's a lot of like, as marketers, and I'm guilty of it too, saying like, you need to listen to your customers and you need to talk to them. But I'm like, babe, that's the bare minimum. Like,
Right.
that's not the aspiration. That's how far behind we are. That I know there's brands who are like, we do need to do that. And I'm like, where have you been? Like, this is table stakes now. This is not like you're doing the most. And so when you're thinking about the relationships, you need to think about it in terms of micro moments, because brands like to think in like extravagance. They're
Right.
going to send you
Super
one.
Bowl commercials and
Yes.
sponsorships and yeah.
Yeah. So they think, like, I think a great example of this is when you go in and there's a viral post and you see all of these brands in the comments talking to each other.
Yep.
And every single time I see that, I think, if I had a problem with any of these companies and I hadn't heard from support yet, and I was seeing this, I'd be livid.
Yeah.
It's on par with like you fighting with your boyfriend because he can't show up for you. And then you see him on a fishing trip, like doing the most. And you're like, so you do have time,
Right.
just not for me. And that's what these brands are showing people. Like, oh, we have time to be goofy and cute in the comment section. We don't have time to post on your TikTok where you're having a real issue. And that's how people feel. Like, they want connection, but then they aren't willing to do the things that a healthy connection needs to have. And so whether it be love language or anything like that, it's just not it's not doing what it needs to do. And they want us to feel something, but they're not doing anything to make us feel that way. And I find that, like, depending on who it is you're trying to build that relationship with, it honestly very rarely does it take a lot. It
No,
actually,
just the bare minimum of basic human consideration.
yeah, like, I see you.
Yeah.
Or, like, there's so many brands and I'm like, I don't know why you don't repost other people's content that talks about you. Like, just a retweet or a repost, I think is huge
Right.
because it basically amplifies positive word of mouth. It shows that you saw it and that you appreciated it. And then chances are that person's then gonna tell every single person they know or see that day, like, "So and so just reposted me." And it took what, 2 seconds?
Right.
Took 1 or 2 seconds.
But how much of that is not happening because of like the internal bureaucracy that we've created of like, well, I need approval to, I worked with
100%.
a brand that had like a 10-step approval process to send an internal email to
Yeah,
25 people.
yeah.
And we're creating this situation in which we have to dehumanize because we've created so much bureaucracy. And by dehumanizing, we no longer serve our customers who are humans.
100%. And so one of the things that I talk about in the book is we have a massive problem with de-siloing. And so as companies grow, there's a reason why the bigger a company gets, the more away from you as a consumer it feels. The
Mhm.
harder it is to get in touch with them. And it's because of that. It's that bureaucracy. It's that siloing effect. And so we need to de-silo it because the customer experience, most brands, they have it sit with customer support. And it's owned by them, and if the customer leaves, it's their fault. It's their metric to own and be burned by.
Right.
But
Even if it's not their like doing, you know what I mean? It's like getting in
I'd
trouble for
argue
something you
most
didn't even do.
I'd argue most of the time it has nothing to do with them. So, great case in point. Let's say that someone sees sees you online, sees a social post, thinks you're hilarious. So, like, win for the social team. Because of that, they want to learn more. So now they're getting deeper into the flywheel or the funnel, depending on what your drug of choice is. And then they talk to sales, and sales has a very different vibe.
Right.
Bit more buttoned up, maybe a bit too serious. Everything's good to go. They're a bit pushy. Maybe they promise you things that the tool can't actually do. Then you get through and now you're frustrated because it literally can't do what you asked for it to do. So you were
Right.
lied to. And then basically everyone else, whether it be support who's trying to fix something that isn't broken, it's just not there. And then you have customer advocacy that maybe wants to do something with you because maybe you have a follower count or you're an influencer, but they can't really fix what's broken because, like I said, it's not really broken. It's just not there. That one salesperson undid the work of everyone else you touched.
Right.
And it not just sales, marketing, anything. It exists everywhere. And there's people on your team that are not customer facing that their work still touches the customer and still impacts the customer experience. but they'll never know because everybody is siloed. And so you have to de-silo first. You have to figure out, like, how can we work? How can we break up the bureaucracy? How can we be more human? So it isn't I filled out the form and I need to wait 7 business days, and then maybe the director will say it's okay, and then, like, why?
Right.
Like, why are you not empowering your team? And I just find that, like, because we're so risk averse, we've kind of, like, just mechanically created this infrastructure that dehumanizes all of us, including our staff, including our clients, whatever that is.
Right. Well, and that goes kind of back to your hot take a little bit, right? We've de-riskified all of our professional content because hey, this is the formula and it works, and just follow the formula and don't deviate from the formula because someone might not like the way you wrote it the first time.
Exactly. And the thing too is that once you have that formula and you're not doing anything outside of that, then nothing is a surprise and delight. Nothing feels special
Right.
because you're like, 'cause, like, how was the how have you felt the first time you saw something and it was personalized for you? And then and you're like, "Oh, this is really cool. This feels like it's made for me." And then weeks go by and something similar happens and you're like, "Oh,
That was
this
a form
is
letter.
that was a form letter."
Yeah.
You went from feeling very special to, "I am just a number," real fast, very fast.
And the extra layer of and I got, right? Like I got duped a little bit.
Yeah,
Like I was dumb enough
yeah,
to fall for it, right? That
yeah, like,
so
"I thought they liked me.
I thought
Never
they liked
mind."
me. Well, could we imagine? I always joke with people, like, you need to think about how would you show up if you were dating this person? Because if you showed up
Yes,
as a company and you walked in, I always joke with salespeople, if you go to the bar and you stand in the middle and you jump up on the bar and you say, "Hey ladies, my name is Mike and here's my pedigree, here's all my stats, here's everything about me. Don't you want some of this?"
yes,
Every woman in the bar would be like,
like, pass, miss me with
"Pass."
that. Yeah.
Right? But instead we do that. We do
Oh,
that on
yeah.
LinkedIn and we do that in our marketing
Oh,
and we stand there and we point at the guy next to us and say, "You don't want him, you want me because I'm way better," instead
exactly.
of developing a real relationship. But then imagine if that same person you're dating had multiple personalities and you met someone at the bar who you really liked, but then at dinner you were like, "Whoa, this guy's crazy." But with
Yes.
his family, he was wonderful. Like we see this in people and we throw up the red flags and yet we let companies get away with it.
100%. And also the thing that they do too, like, I love that analogy because it makes so much sense. Like, your social is your Tinder profile. It's the public
Yeah.
advertisement of, like, "Don't you wanna spend time with this? I'm the absolute best."
Right.
But then
Here's all the
imagine
cool things I'm doing. Don't you want to come
Yeah,
along for a hike on the Grand Canyon with me?
exactly. But then on top of that, imagine that same person, you connect with them and you're like, "Great." And then you realize that they're using the exact same pickup line on you and everyone else.
Yeah.
They have a script.
Yeah. And that's one thing if they're honest about it, right? Like if that's their
Yeah.
script and they're open, like, "Hey, this is my script, this is my play, this is what
This
I
is my
do,"
vibe. Yeah.
right? But if we pretended like, "Hey, Christina, this was just for you, just you. You're the only one for me,
Yes.
babe." Like that's when it starts to feel icky, when it doesn't feel like I was a part of that. Like
Yes.
I was on the inside of that. I was an insider knowledge person in the first place. If I have to find that out after the fact, that's when it starts to get icky.
Oh, 100%. And then it also you will never trust them again.
Right.
And then you'll also not have trust in a lot of other people. So it's kind of like there's certain, like, industry verticals where you kind of have that negative connotation because you've been burned one too many times by people in that thing. So it's like the finance bro of it all. Like, you're like, "Oh, I know. I played this game.
Yeah.
I know
I see a
exactly where
Patagonia vest. I know what's coming.
Yeah, I know it's coming. I can write this playbook. I've seen your playbook. I've seen it happen." Yeah, it's the exact same thing. And so I think if you think about it in terms of, I want a human relationship and I want human behaviors, then I need to treat them like a human. And what would that look like? And actually think about, like, what are their love languages? What motivates them? What makes them feel seen and heard? What makes them feel psychologically safe? Like, all of those things, it's all built around that. It's all built around how you show up, how you tell your story, how do you motivate them? How do you make it very clear, like, I'm creating this specific kind of path for you. And so a lot of what I talk about earlier on in the book is game theory because that
Mhm.
plays such a in psychological behavioral psychology because it plays such a huge role in, like, if a brand's listening to this and be like, "Christina, that's really great, but we have like 2 million customers. We can't personalize it
Right,
to
because that was
every
gonna be my
single
next question
person."
of like, how
Yeah.
do we be human at scale?
Yeah. It's game theory.
So
It's
tell us
game
more,
theory
like
principle.
if someone wants to get started, and
Yeah.
they want to take that first step on that journey, what is the number one thing they should do first?
They need to go ahead and understand that if they have a very clean customer journey map, it's wrong.
I had an accounting professor once who said the more time you spend on your forecast, the more wrong it is, or something like that. That's very much that same thing. If you spend
Yeah,
all of your time building the forecast instead of actually out there doing the work, then you're going to be disappointed with your forecast.
exactly. But think about it this way, like, you'll do a customer journey map, and it's clean, and, like,
Mhm.
"Alright, they do this one, and then they do this one, and then they do this one, and then they do this one." And my response is always like, "You might get 1% do that." And that's, like, lucky. That's, like, good,
Yeah.
because it's not messy. And as humans, whether you wanna treat us like humans or not, we are messy.
Yeah.
We are messy. We doubt ourselves. We overthink. We have bureaucracy. We
We
could be
behave inconsistently.
we behave
We have a lot
inconsistently.
of cognitive dissonance going on for sure.
Yeah, there are variables that are gonna impact our decision that have absolutely nothing to do with you. Why did you want an email back? "I'm going to a Taylor Swift concert tonight." Like, has nothing to do with your business. Totally gonna impact your business. You're not
Right.
gonna get that contract signed tonight, buddy. Like, just things like that where it's just like, we're trying to put people in a box, or we're trying to, like, shove them into a spreadsheet as a number, and then think that we can predict what they can do, and it's like, you're literally acting like this is a vacuum. There is
Right.
no vacuum. There isn't one. Like,
Well, and
you
anyone
have to
who
deal with that.
pretends like they have the magic solution to a one size fits all approach, right? So like
Yeah.
we did a study a couple of years ago, and my background is in customer research, right?
Mhm.
And how people make decisions.
Yeah.
And we called it our beer test, right? It's like
Mhm.
the Bush, would you have a beer with them? We did the
Yeah.
same thing but for brands and
Oh,
discovered
okay.
that people make decisions illogically and emotionally based on whether or not they would quote unquote have a beer with that brand. And it has
100%.
absolutely nothing to do with the value that they're getting and all of those things. And that does come into play for renewal. Like, let's not pretend that it doesn't.
Yeah.
But we rationalize logical decisions, or we rationalize emotional decisions with logic, is what we
Mhm.
discovered. People will go
100%.
back and look for any reason to say, no, no, I made a rational, logical decision based on fact.
Yeah.
You probably made an emotional decision and you're just backtracking to make it a logical one.
100%. And so if you couple that information with behavioral psychology, with game theory, you'll see that people do that at the same time. So, like, let's say that someone wants a beer with your brand, but they're actually talking to a competitor.
Yeah.
They're gonna look for confirmation bias. They're gonna look for the bad reviews for that brand because they're like, "Oh, something inside me doesn't feel right." And then they're gonna find reviews and be like, "See, that person
See,
didn't have a good time."
there was a 1-star review a couple of years ago, and so
Yeah,
it's a no from
exactly.
me. Yeah.
Exactly. That just confirms, like, my worries are validated.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go there. We're gonna go over here. They make me feel warm and fuzzy. Like, I
And
like them.
my gut says to go with them.
Yes,
So
and
I have to go find the data to support that feeling.
exactly. Exactly. And so when you start realizing how people are doing that and how they're looking, it's kind of the same idea of the person who'll go on TikTok and be like, "I did my research," and be like, "Babe, you watched one 30-minute YouTube video."
If even that, you
Like,
skipped on 2x speed and
yes, you didn't that YouTube doctoral, like, thesis paper's not coming, babe. Like, it's not coming. But it's the same thing. They basically watched a video that validated their thoughts and be like, "See?
and watched a
Proven
video that
correct."
validated their thoughts that was served to them on the algorithm
Yes.
that is tuned to what they like and what they already believe.
Exactly. And so what you're seeing is, and I think we see this now with, like, misinformation and distrust, is people are saying, like, "I trust this news outlet, so it doesn't matter what they say, I'm not gonna question it." Because of course, why would they lie to me? Like, oh, there's a whole laundry list there, but, like, you wanna trust them, so you're gonna trust them.
Exactly.
But that's the thing is, like, build that customer journey map, but, like, be as messy as humanly possible. Like, be very messy and talk to
Right.
your customers about, like, where are they going off? Like, where are they kind of, like, meandering? And you're like,
Yeah.
"You lost them for 3 months, but okay, cool. When they circle back, so glad that we're talking again. Like, just wanted to know, like, during our break in communication, like, were you searching for other things? Were you busy? Was there maybe, like, financial changes?"
Right.
Like, and that conversation, if you build that relationship, that conversation makes sense to them. If you don't have a relationship with them and you start asking those questions, be like, "Ooh, that's really intrusive. Like,
Yeah, very transactional.
that's really
Yes.
none of your business." But that's the thing is, like, There are things that you need that relationship with so you can be mutually beneficial. But the way brands want relationships, it's one-sided. They want you to love them. They want you to do all this for them. And then, like, best case scenario, you get a hoodie or like a Yeti. But that's like top tier. That's like a ring on your finger.
I was gonna say that's a very expensive gift to
Yeah.
people. But I think that it's too bad too because there are some brands that do it really, really well.
Yes.
And then there are some brands that ruin it for everybody, right? Like we have one
Yes.
brand that makes everybody suspicious, and now I'm suspicious of even the good ones.
Yes. I completely agree. I love Chewy. I think
I love
Chewy
Chewy. Hmm.
I think Chewy is like, if anyone ever asks, like, "All right, Christina, you dog on everybody. No one's getting it right. Who's getting it right?" It's Chewy. And I say that knowing that a lot of the good stuff they do is a repeatable, scalable thing, but the
Right.
way they execute it makes it feel like it's not scalable. It makes it
Right.
feel intimate. And so I really love how they show up, with empathy, how you'll see anyone that works for the company talking about it, and they're using the same kind of vernacular. They're using the
Yeah.
same kind of talking points about emotion and empathy. And I think that's just really beautiful. So if I'm not dogging on everybody. Chewy's safe.
Right. Chewy is safe.
Chewy
It
is safe.
almost feels like they have a customer journey guideline rather than a map, right?
Yes.
We're generally in this direction. We exist in this quadrant of decision making, but not drawing an actual map that you have to stick
Yes.
to rigidly or a decision tree.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that they've also set up processes where everyone feels empowered. So you don't have be like, I really want to do something for these people and get everything up there. Like I wrote earlier today about when was the last time you fought for a customer? Because we talk about talking to a customer, but what about like you fought for them?
You're advocating, you're in the trenches for them. Yeah.
Yeah, because when was the last time you did that? Because I don't think a lot of people have. There's some customer marketers I've worked with. I know that they've like had knockout, drag out fights. I've had knockout, drag out fights, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like we're not doing right by them, and we can't ask them to advocate for us if we're going to treat them like this. And so, like, how are you showing up? What does that look like? How messy is it? And I think that's the other thing too is like we have all these silos and we have all this bureaucracy and we have all this infrastructure to make it not be messy. But in the result of removing the mess, we've removed what made us human. We removed the humanness that made people feel connected to us.
Yeah. And I think that that is something that we have to consciously decide to take back.
Yes. And I think we're going to. I think you're gonna see not everybody, but I think that right now we're really facing like with everything that's happening on social, with mistrust, with AI, we're seeing this big push, whether we like it or not, to kind of go all in on like automating absolutely every facet of our lives. And I'm starting to see pushback, and I think it's only going to spread. I think you're going to see a human renaissance where people are going to see all the damage that it's doing, and they'll be like, "We got to rally. We can't do this." So I think we're going to suffer first, and then I think we're going to course correct.
We're gonna have a little bit of a customer dark ages here, and then we'll get our renaissance.
I think so. Yeah.
So, considering that, thinking about all of the incredible people that you follow, that you listen to, that you know or aspire to know, who is leading the charge? Who is going to be the leader of that renaissance?
I think it's Eli Weiss. He's at Yotpo. He's absolutely brilliant. He's their head of retention. I think he's VP of retention, I think is his title. Um, but he is brilliant, and he continues to show positive examples of what this looks like in practice. And so I think he's also shifted a lot of how Yotpo does their work and really kind of like digging back into the community and what does this look like and what does retention look like from an e-commerce perspective. He's done a really great, thoughtful job, and he's very holistic. He's every time he posts something, it feels very human. And so it's got to be Eli.
Okay, well, we will definitely be checking out Eli's content
Yeah.
and making sure that we're following him. But if someone is really connecting with you, where can they find you online?
So I live on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. I live on
I
LinkedIn.
refuse. It's Twitter.
Well, if Max can go back to HBO Max, then X can go back to Twitter. So I'm holding out hope. But I live on Twitter. I live on LinkedIn. I have my book coming out called Transforming Customer Brand Relationships in September. You can find that at Waterstones, Barnes and Noble, Amazon and Token Page, and pre-order it now. You just search my name basically and book, and it'll come up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on the growth signal. This was a really fascinating conversation.
Thanks for having me. I love chatting with you.